Cowboys Report host Tom Downey here. Dane Brugler of The Athletic had some, I think, really noteworthy insight into the Cowboys draft plans for 2025 on the Athletic Football Show. I want to break down what Dane said, some of the things others have said, stuff that I expect, don't expect. Let's begin big picture. The reason why Dane talked about the Cowboys is he thinks it's, quote, so critical that they hit on this pick. Look, to their credit, the Cowboys have been one of the best drafting teams in the top 25 the last 15 years. When they're picking the top 25, they don't miss. They haven't missed very much in that range in the past 15-ish years. Tyler Smith was a huge hit. Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb were massive hits. Van Der Esch's medical issues were a real concern and kind of make me not count that as a hit. For a running back, Elliott was great early on and then very much faded off, but he was really good early. Zach Martin, Tyron Smith, Des Bryant were all obvious hits. Morris Claiborne was the miss. That was the big-time miss for the Dallas Cowboys. So in general, before we go more in depth on what else Dane said, I want you to grade the Cowboys as drafters relative to the rest of the NFL because you're always going to miss on picks. It's impossible not to. A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know how you feel about the Cowboys as drafters. Dane mentioned he sees four paths that exist, four main paths, I should say. Always a possibility of something weird happening. The Cowboys could pursue. He said that's Ashton Jeanty, Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan, and the best edge rusher on that board, or the best receiver on their board, whoever that may end up being. One of those four directions, it feels like that's the direction they're going to go. Now, we'll break down all four paths here for the Dallas Cowboys. I would say in general, I'm inclined to agree with that. And the Cowboys usually, not always, but usually they go with the money positions. Defensive line, normally edge. Offensive line, normally tackle. Wide receiver, corner. Now, there are exceptions in there. They draft Micah wasn't really drafted as an edge. He was a linebacker. They drafted Ezekiel Elliott. But that's typically the path they end up going. Three of those paths Dane mentions are the money positions. Edge, receiver, the one corner, and then the outlier of, top five can play in the class of Ashton Jeanty. So who do you want the Cowboys to draft in round one? Let me know in the comment section of today's show. It's the pinned comment. So if the ad comes here on YouTube, let me know. Realistic names, so you can't say Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. Who do you want the Dallas Cowboys to take in round one? We'll come back to Jeanty and the running backs, but I actually want to start with wide receiver because this is, I think, what is most interesting with what Dane said and where there's some more options along the path. Dane says they'll have options there at 12. All the receiving options might be on the board. We might not see the first receiver drafted until number 12. Is that T-Mac? Is that Matthew Golden? Is it Egubka from Ohio State? I think you can see how any of those would fit into what they want to be on offense. It's going to help CD. It's going to help Dak. Now, I would rank those wide receivers personally in that order. McMillan, Golden, Egubka, specifically as it relates to the Cowboys, but also just in general on my board, I think that those are, of the three guys mentioned, that's the order I'd put them in. T-Mac would be number one for me. Getting an outside vertical presence is something this team hasn't had in a very long time. I think McMillan is a fantastic football player. He is the only receiver in college football to put up at least 1,030 yards in back-to-back seasons. The production does not lie. He was, at many times, the Arizona offense was F it, T-Max down there somewhere, and it worked. If you could get him at 12, knowing he's not a burner, knowing he's more on like kind of the T. Higgins archetype, I would have zero complaints about that. Now, I have a very early second-round grade. It'll be actually my highest-graded second-round player. You just missed the cutoff. That's Matthew Golden. Now, Golden brings you speed. I don't think he's as fast on the field as his 4.29 suggests. But even then, we're still talking 4.4s play speed, and that's really valuable. He fits, again, as a route runner, a speedy guy, which you also don't really have at wide receiver. So T-Mac's my ideal pick at 12. I wouldn't be as in love with Golden, but I wouldn't be mad at it either. Emeka Egubka, meanwhile, I'm a little bit lower on, but he also fits with the exact thing Dallas is searching for. He is the wide receiver too. He was never the number one receiver at Ohio State. It was always somebody else. And yet, he's the all-time leader for the Buckeyes. He has consistently produced. He is a good run blocker. He fits, I think, what Brian Schottenheimer would like. But he's, I think a Robert Woods style player. I think he's a pretty easy evaluation. The valuation, how I do you draft, I think what is pretty much a clear-cut wide receiver too. I think Golden and McMillan have more upside. That gets a little bit dicey for me. So pick a wide receiver. Of those three, who would it be? TM for Tetairoa McMillan, MG for Matthew Golden, or EE for Emeka Egubka? Let me know in the comments of today's show. Now, I thought it was both interesting and very noteworthy that Dane did not even mention Luther Burden, the Missouri wide receiver. Look, I am a fan of Luther Burden. I like his game. I get that it was plenty of slot stuff. That's fine. It's 2025. You can use a slot receiver. I think that he can play on the outside. He is dynamic with the ball in his hands. You don't have a crafty yak generator. Lamb can do a lot of the stuff we've mentioned, but you don't have a yak creator the same way that Luther Burden is. For whatever reason, NFL is just not high on them. He's just not. So I think you could kind of probably cross him off with 12. Trade down maybe is an option, but I think you can cross off Burden based on what Dane had said. By the way, of note, I'm not including Travis Hunter. He's not going to be there. Come on. And Dane knows that too. Let's go to the cornerback, Will Johnson. Some of you might be traumatized by a Michigan player, but your last Michigan corner worked out pretty damn well for you. I also am a big fan of what Will Johnson offers. Now, he missed time this season. He allowed more touchdowns this year than in his previous 2 years combined. I think he was getting a little bit too greedy, trying to make too many plays, but he's got ball skills. I don't see some 4-6 corner like some seem to be freaking out about. He's had some injury stuff. I'm not really worried about it there. I think he's going to be a damn good corner. I see some shades of Xavier Howard. He's got a first-round grade for me. If T-Mac's gone, no complaints about drafting Will Johnson. Not mentioned by Dane, and correctly so, even though I love him, was Jahdae Barron. Cowboys like arm length. Barron's got sub-30-inch arms. There's no way they take him in round 1. I think he's awesome. I really do. But I don't think they're going to really consider him in round 1. We'll talk running backs here in a second, plus the edge conversation. We will have plenty of Cowboys draft videos for you. So if you haven't already, hit that sub button, youtube.com/@CowboysTV. Now, let's talk backs. I have my doubts they take one in the first round. I think they'd prefer to take a money position if they could. They would discuss Ashton Jeanty, though, make no mistake about it. But a new running back is coming to this team. Dane says, quote, they're going to draft a running back at some point. If they don't take Ashton Jeanty or throw a Marion Hampton in there, he's included there at 12. If they don't draft one at 12, round 2 or round 3, they are going to draft a back. Specifically in round 1, I don't know if Jeanty was there at 12, depending on who else is there, obviously. I don't know if they'd take him with the 12th overall pick. My guess is they probably would, depending on, unless T-Mac's there. But in the end, I don't think it matters. I don't think Jeanty makes 12. It's not that different than the Bijan Robinson conversation from 2 years ago. Should you take him? Yeah, you should take him if he's there. We're not going to be there. I don't think they take Hampton at 12. Hampton, I think, goes somewhere in the top 25 picks. But I don't think they would really consider him at 12. There had already been the report from David Moore. The Cowboys would have to consider Jeanty. They might not do it. If they are considering whether or not to take Jeanty, it means they're not going to take Hampton. But I do think, whether it's round 2, round 3, outside chance they wait until the 5th, depending on how the board falls, to take a back, Cowboys are going to take one. They have made that pretty obvious with their plans. So what round do you think the Cowboys will draft a running back? Let me know in the comment section of today's video. What round do you think the Cowboys will add that young back? Next, let's move to the edge rushing options. And some people surprised by the Cowboys, by Dane mentioning edge for the Cowboys. I'm not overly shocked at it, actually, because I've actually heard some similar stuff. Now, look, Abdul Carter's not going to be there. I'll leak the gas mask photos. It's just not going to happen. That leaves some combination of Mike Green, Jalen Walker, Michael Williams, Shamar Stewart, maybe James Pierce, Donovan Ezeraku. I don't think Dallas is as high on those guys. Pierce has character stuff that are more like effort focused that I think are red flags. I'll look more at Green, Walker, Williams, and Stewart, but in general, I don't really want to go edge at 12. Even if I've got a slightly higher grade on like a Mike Green, I think you can very much talk me into you're better off taking a receiver. You have options for the time being at edge. You have Micah Parsons. You have Marshawn Nealon. You signed Dante Fowler. You have Sam Williams. You signed Peyton Turner. Now, to be fair, technically one of those guys for now is under contract. And it is some uncertainty with Sam Williams and Marshawn Nealon and Dante Fowler even to an extent, and Peyton Turner for certain. But I don't think edge at 12 is the best path here. Mike Green is the top guy on my personal board. Now, you got to trust the off-the-field stuff there. There's a lot we don't know about, so there's a big asterisk on that one. But he was wildly productive at Marshall this past year and looked good at the Senior Bowl. Jalen Walker, I get kind of skittish with the tweener concerns there. But, Cowboys prove they can make the edge linebacker hybrid stuff work out pretty well. And then what I'm actually worried about, frankly, is there has been plenty of credible buzz that the Cowboys like Micah Williams a lot. I've heard Nick Harris mention that. I've heard the draft show mention it a couple different times. And, Matt Eberflus went to the Georgia Pro Day. I think that if, T-Mac wasn't there, who I think would be their ideal target, or insert receiver if they love Golden or something, which I think it's T-Mac, I would be worried that they would take Micah Williams, who is a good athlete. He's not a superstar athlete. Doesn't have the production that I want, and has been a hurt guy. Hurt guys scare me. I think Shamar Stewart, with, if we're going to play the not great production, but has the traits, Shamar Stewart's the better fit there. Now, edges in general have a lot more development and projection involved than some other positions, but I don't really want to go down the edge path. Give me Will Johnson. Give me Tet McMillan. I think there's a good chance one of those guys are there. And if that's the case, I feel pretty good about the Cowboys' round 1 pick.